My phone buzzed on the nightstand at 2:13 a.m., a venomous, vibrating sound in the dead quiet of the night. My husband, Alex, stirred beside me. The screen lit up with a picture of my 7-year-old daughter, Lily. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was her first ever sleepover, a rite of passage I'd been both excited and terrified for. I snatched the phone. "Lily? Sweetie, are you okay?" Her voice was small, thick with tears. "Mommy, I want to come home." I went into parent mode, soothing and calm. "Of course, honey. Did you have a nightmare?" There was a pause, and then she whispered the words that turned my blood to ice. "Aunt Brenda said you told her it was okay." "Okay for what?" I didn't understand, but a cold dread started to spread through me. Before I continue the story, please subscribe. I need to reach 1,000 subscribers so I can keep bringing you stories like this every day. It's just one click for you, but it means a lot to me. To understand why that one simple sentence felt like a gunshot in a library, you have to understand my sister, Brenda. And to understand Brenda, you have to understand the weird, warped ecosystem of my family. In our family, there were 2 roles, assigned from birth and ruthlessly enforced. Brenda was the son. She was the golden child, the brilliant, beautiful, chaotic force of nature around whom all other planets were forced to orbit. I was the moon. My job was to be steady, to be predictable, and to reflect her light back at her, making her seem even brighter. If she broke a vase, I was the one who had quietly swept up the pieces before Mom got home. If she failed a test, I was the one who was told to tutor her, my own A+ being taken for granted. My parents didn't see it as favoritism, they saw it as efficiency. Brenda was the high-maintenance project, the one who needed constant tending, propping up, and bailing out. I was the reliable appliance, the one you could plug in and forget about, trusted to just keep running without complaint. It created a dynamic where Brenda never had to face a single consequence. Her mistakes were just Brenda being Brenda. My mistakes, rare as they were treated as catastrophic failures, evidence that I wasn't as reliable as they'd thought. This system bred in her a profound and unshakable sense of entitlement. The world owed her, and I, as her sister, was just a line item in her cosmic budget, a resource to be tapped whenever needed. She didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a utility, a personal banker, a free therapist, a last-minute babysitter, a convenient alibi. My role was to give, and her role was to take. For years I played my part because I was taught that this was the price of peace, this was the definition of family. The pattern was cemented in childhood. I remember one specific summer when I was 10 and Brenda was 12. I had spent the entire spring saving up my allowance and doing extra chores for neighbors to buy a brand new cherry red bicycle. It was my prized possession. I polished it every day. Brenda had a bike, an older one, but she was bored with it. One afternoon I came home from a friend's house to find my bike gone from the garage. I panicked. I ran inside and found my mom in the kitchen. She wouldn't meet my eye. "Brenda borrowed it," she said, her voice laced with that familiar tone of forced casualness. Her friend Tiffany's bike got a flat tire, and she needed to get home. It turned out that was a lie. Brenda had taken my bike to the woods with her friends to try and build a ramp. I found it 2 days later, hidden in a bush behind our house. The frame was bent, the chain was off, and one of the handlebars was twisted at a grotesque angle. It was ruined. When I confronted Brenda, tears streaming down my face, she just shrugged. "It was an accident. You're being so dramatic." When I took the issue to my parents, my father sat me down for a talk. He told me that I needed to learn to share. He said Brenda felt terrible, even though she showed no remorse whatsoever. He then explained that since I was so responsible, I should have known better than to leave my bike where she could get it. I was being punished for her actions. The ultimate resolution? My father tinkered with the bike in the garage, getting it to a barely rideable state, and told me it built character. Brenda got a brand new bike for her birthday 2 months later because hers was so old. I was 10 years old, and I learned a critical lesson. My property wasn't mine. My feelings didn't matter, and my sister's whims were more important than my heart. That was the foundation upon which our entire relationship was built. It was a blueprint for decades of simmering resentment. As we grew into teenagers, the stakes just got higher. Brenda's brand of chaos blossomed from broken bicycles to broken curfews, suspicious new friends, and the constant, desperate need for cash. She was the life of every party, which meant she was also the cause of every hangover, every bit of drama, and every panicked phone call to our parents, and I, predictably, was the designated fixer. I was the one who had to cover for her when she snuck out, lying to my parents' faces that she was asleep in her bed. I was the one who had to lend her my hard-earned money from my waitressing job, money I was saving for college, because she'd spent all of hers on concert tickets or clothes. She'd promised to pay me back, looking at me with those wide, pleading eyes, and I'd always cave. She never did pay me back, of course. It would just be absorbed into the great ether of family favors. The most egregious incident happened when I was 17. I had been saving for months to buy a used car, a beat-up but functional Honda Civic that represented freedom to me. I had just over $1,000 kept in a lockbox in my closet. The night before I was supposed to go buy it, Brenda came into my room crying. Her boyfriend had gotten into some trouble, she said. He owed money to someone scary. She needed $500 just for a few days. She swore on our mother's life she'd have it back by the end of the week. I felt sick. I hated her boyfriend, a greasy, wannabe rock star named Kevin. But she was my sister, and she looked genuinely terrified. Against my better judgment, I gave her the money. The next day, I found out the scary guy was a ticket scalper, and the trouble was that they wanted front row seats to a music festival. They'd posted pictures all over social media, decked out in new merchandise, grinning like idiots. When I confronted her, she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Lighten up, Marta," she'd said, flipping her hair. "You need to live a little. You can get another car." My parents' response? Well, at least she's having fun. "You've always been too serious, Marta. Maybe this is a lesson in not being so attached to material things." They weren't a family, they were a cult, and Brenda was their charismatic leader. I thought, foolishly, that things would change when we became adults. I went off to college, got a degree, met my wonderful husband Alex, and built a life for myself. I put physical distance between us, hoping it would create emotional distance as well. But Brenda's gravitational pull was strong. She flunked out of community college after one semester and drifted between low-wage jobs, always getting fired for being late or having a bad attitude. She met and married Rick, a man who was essentially her male counterpart, charming on the surface but deeply lazy and entitled. They were a perfect storm of irresponsibility. And through it all, my parents continued to enable them, and I was still expected to be the family safety net. The calls for money never stopped. It was always a one-time emergency. Their rent was late, their car broke down, they needed help with a medical bill. Alex, who saw the dynamic with a clear, outsider's perspective, was the first person to ever tell me it was okay to say no. "Marta, they are grown adults," he'd say gently. "You are not their personal ATM," but the guilt was a powerful, deeply ingrained reflex. The biggest betrayal of our adult lives came about 3 years before the sleepover incident. Brenda and Rick were facing eviction. They called me, sobbing, saying they just needed $2,000 to get back on their feet. They had a plan, they said. Rick had a new job lined up. This was the last time, they promised. They swore it. Alex was firmly against it. "This will not be the last time," he warned. "You know it won't." But I saw my parents getting ready to mortgage their future to bail her out again, and I couldn't bear it. So we gave them the money, a significant chunk of our savings, with a written agreement that they would pay us back in monthly installments. For the first 2 months, we actually got a payment. Then, silence. When I called to ask, Brenda was full of excuses. Then she got angry. "You have plenty of money. Why are you nickel and diming your own sister? I can't believe how selfish you've become." The final insult came when we saw my mum post pictures from a family trip to Hawaii. My parents had paid for Brenda, Rick, and their daughter Chloe to go on a 10-day vacation because Brenda was so stressed out and needed a break. They hadn't even told us. We were paying for their financial irresponsibility while they were sipping Mai Tais on a beach. That was the moment something in me finally started to crack. The illusion of family was beginning to crumble, revealing the ugly transactional reality beneath. After the Hawaii incident, I tried to pull back. I stopped answering every frantic phone call. I started saying no when they asked for favors. It was excruciating. Every time I did, my mother would call me, her voice dripping with disappointment. "I don't know what's happened to you, Marta. You used to be so kind. Brenda is your sister. Family is supposed to be there for each other." It was classic gaslighting, reframing my healthy boundaries as a moral failing. They were experts at it. They would talk about the importance of being stronger together, but what they really meant was that I needed to be strong enough to carry all of them. Alex was my rock through all of this. He never said, "I told you so." He would just listen to me vent, hold my hand, and validate my feelings. "What you're feeling is not an overreaction," he'd say. "They are taking advantage of you. You have every right to be angry." He was the first person in my life who didn't treat my feelings as an inconvenience. He was like an anchor in the storm of their manipulation, reminding me what a normal, healthy relationship was supposed to look like. His calm, unwavering support gave me the courage to keep trying to build those walls, even when my family was doing everything in their power to tear them down. But the pull of a lifetime of conditioning is strong. There were times I'd slip. A birthday, a holiday, a moment of weakness, and I'd find myself drawn back into the old dynamic, hoping that this time things would be different. I'd show up, I'd be polite. I'd try to keep the peace for the sake of the kids, my Lily and her cousin Chloe. I was, as Alex once put it, like a frog in a pot of slowly boiling water. I had gotten so used to the toxic heat that I didn't realize it was killing me. I just knew that I was deeply, profoundly tired. So, when my daughter, Lily, came to me with her eyes shining, clutching a colorful, hand-drawn invitation, my heart did a complicated little dance of joy and dread. It was an invitation to her cousin Chloe's 8th birthday party. The theme was Magical Movie Marathon, and it was a sleepover, Lily's very first. At 7, she was vibrating with an excitement that was impossible to contain. "Can I go, Mommy, please? Chloe said we can stay up all night and eat popcorn for breakfast. Please, please, please." Seeing that pure, unadulterated joy on her face was like a balm to my soul. How could I say no? How could I let my toxic, complicated history with my sister poison this perfectly normal, wonderful childhood experience for my daughter? Chloe was an innocent party in all of this, a sweet girl who adored her cousin. Punishing them both felt cruel and selfish. The sleepover was at Brenda's house. Of course it was. My parents had offered to host, but Brenda had insisted, saying she had the whole thing planned out and wanted to make it extra special for her little girl. I knew, with a sinking feeling, what that meant. It meant she wanted to be the hero, the fun aunt, the one who threw the best parties. It was all about her image. The old Marta, the pre-Hawaii incident Marta, would have agreed without a second thought. But the new, warier Marta felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. I had managed to keep my interactions with Brenda to a minimum for the better part of a year, limiting them to brief, public gatherings where she couldn't corner me. An entire overnight stay, entrusting her with the most precious person in my world, felt like a monumental leap of faith, a leap I wasn't sure I was ready to take. But then I looked at Lily's face again, her expression so full of hope, and the maternal instinct to protect her joy warred with the instinct to protect her from my family. In that moment, the desire to give her a normal, happy childhood won out. That night, I brought it up with Alex. We were cleaning up after dinner, the comfortable silence of our kitchen, a stark contrast to the chaos I always associated with my sister's home. "Lily got invited to Chloe's birthday sleepover," I said, trying to sound casual as I scrubbed a plate a little too hard. Alex paused, drying a glass, and looked at me. He didn't have to say anything. I could read the concern in his eyes. He knew exactly what a sleepover at Brenda's entailed. "And you're thinking of letting her go?" he asked, his voice even and calm, devoid of judgment. I think so," I stammered, feeling defensive. "She's so excited, Alex. She and Chloe are best friends. It's her first sleepover. It feels wrong to say no just because of me. Because of my issues with Brenda." He set the glass down and leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Are they your issues, Marta? Or are they Brenda's issues that you're forced to deal with?" He had a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of the matter. "I know," I sighed, my shoulders slumping. But what if she's changed? People can change, right? It's been a while. Maybe she's matured. Alex gave me a look that was both kind and deeply skeptical. Has she shown any evidence of that? Has she ever once apologized for the Hawaii money? For anything? I had no answer because the answer was no. Brenda's version of an apology was to pretend nothing had ever happened. It's for Lily, I said again, my voice smaller this time. It had become my mantra, my justification for walking back into the fire. Alex came over and put his arms around me. Okay, he said softly. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're her mum. But promise me one thing. Trust your gut. If anything feels off, even a little bit, we pull the plug. No questions asked. We can have Chloe over here for a sleepover any time. I hugged him tightly, grateful for his support, for the out he was giving me. Okay, I promised. I'll trust my gut. But I was already overriding it, silencing that little voice in the back of my head that was screaming, "This is a terrible idea." The week leading up to the sleepover was a masterclass in Brenda's signature brand of passive aggression. She called me 3 separate times to confirm details, each call a thinly veiled attempt to assert her superiority as the cool mom. I just bought the cutest matching pajamas for the girls, she'd gush. And I'm getting a real popcorn machine, not that microwave stuff you use. Each comment was a tiny poisoned dart designed to make me feel inadequate. I just gritted my teeth and responded with bland, non-committal phrases. That sounds great, Brenda. Lily is really looking forward to it. Then came the talk about presents. Don't go overboard on a gift for Chloe, she said, her voice dripping with false modesty. We're not like you guys. We don't really care about expensive things. Just something small is fine. This was a classic Brenda trap. If I bought something small, I was cheap. If I bought something big, I was a show-off. I decided to ignore her entirely and bought Chloe a beautiful science kit I knew she'd love, because Chloe was genuinely interested in rocks and minerals. The night before the party, we packed Lily's bag. We laid out her favorite unicorn pajamas, her well-loved stuffed sloth, and her little pink sleeping bag. She chatted excitedly the whole time, planning out the movies they would watch and the snacks they would eat. Seeing her so happy, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this would be fine. Maybe it would be a turning point, a chance to build a new, healthier relationship for our daughter's sake. I was packing her toothbrush when my phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. FYI, Rick and I might have a couple friends over after the girls are asleep. Just for a glass of wine. Don't worry, we'll be super quiet. The winky face emoji felt like a slap. My gut, the one I had promised Alex I would listen to, lurched. A couple of friends? A glass of wine? With Brenda and Rick, that could mean anything. It was a red flag, bright and waving, and I chose to look right past it. I typed back, "Okay, have fun," and stuffed the phone back in my pocket, silencing the alarm bells that were starting to clang in my head. The drive over to Brenda's house was filled with a nervous energy that was almost entirely mine. Lily was bouncing in her booster seat in the back, singing off-key to the radio, oblivious to the storm of anxiety brewing in the driver's seat. Alex sat beside me, quiet and observant. He hadn't said another word against the sleepover, but his presence was a silent statement of support for me, not for the situation. "Are you okay?" he asked as we turned onto Brenda's street. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, my hands gripping the steering wheel. "Just, you know." He knew. He reached over and squeezed my hand. "We can turn around right now. We can tell Lily that Chloe's not feeling well and have our own movie night." The offer was tempting, a lifeline back to the safety of our own home, but we were already there. Brenda's house, a rental that always seemed to be in a state of slight disarray, was right in front of us. A few too many toys littered the lawn, and the porch light was flickering. Taking a deep breath, I put the car in park. "No, it's okay. We're here. It'll be fine." As we walked up the path, the front door flew open and Brenda appeared, a wide, performative smile plastered on her face. "There are my favorite girls," she squealed, enveloping Lily in a hug that seemed more for my benefit than for my daughter's. She was wearing tight jeans and a shirt that looked a little too fancy for a kid's movie night. Her husband, Rick, emerged behind her, holding a beer. "Hey, Marta, Alex. Good to see ya," he said with a lazy grin. He always looked slightly disheveled, like he'd just woken up from a nap. The house smelled faintly of air freshener, trying and failing to cover up the scent of stale takeout. Chloe ran out and grabbed Lily's hand, and the two of them disappeared into the living room, already lost in their own world. Their pure, simple joy was a stark contrast to the complicated tension between the adults. The drop-off was awkward and rushed, a clear signal that Brenda was eager for us to leave. She chattered a mile a minute, a whirlwind of nervous energy. "Okay, so we're going to do pizza, then we'll watch 3 movies back to back. I've got all their favorites. Then we'll do cake and presents, and then hopefully they'll pass out from a sugar coma around midnight. Fun, right?" She laughed, a high-pitched, brittle sound. She barely made eye contact with me, her gaze darting around the room. I tried to go over the basics. "Her medication is in the side pocket of her bag. She needs it right before bed. And please, no cola after 7 or she'll be bouncing off the walls." Brenda waved a dismissive hand. Yeah, got it. Don't worry, Marta. I've done this before. I'm a mom too, you know." It was another subtle dig, another reminder that she didn't need or want my instructions. She took Lily's sleeping bag from me and practically herded us toward the door. "All right. Well, I should probably get the pizzas in the oven. You guys have a good night. Don't you worry about a thing. We are going to have so much fun tonight, aren't we, girls?" She called over her shoulder. She shared a quick, loaded look with Rick, a flicker of something that I couldn't quite decipher but that made my stomach clench. It felt secretive. It felt like they had a plan that I wasn't privy to. I gave Lily one last hug, my heart aching with a strange sense of foreboding. "Be good, sweetie. Call me if you need anything at all. Anything." "I will, Mommy, I love you," she said, already distracted by Chloe showing her a new toy. As we walked back to the car, the feeling of unease was so thick I could taste it. Alex didn't speak until we were buckled in and pulling away from the curb. He just looked at me, his expression grim. "My phone will be on all night," he said, his voice low. "Just in case." His words hung in the air, a prophecy I wasn't ready to hear. The evening at home was strange. The house was too quiet. Lily's absence was a palpable presence, a hole in the fabric of our routine. Alex and I tried to enjoy the rare, kid-free evening. We ordered our favorite Thai food, the kind that's too spicy for Lily, and opened a bottle of wine. We put on a movie, something grown-up and complicated with subtitles, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to Brenda's house. I'd replay the drop-off in my head, dissecting every word, every glance. Brenda's overly bright smile, the weird look she'd given Rick. The text about a couple of friends. Every detail felt sinister now, imbued with a meaning I couldn't quite grasp. I kept my phone on the arm of the sofa, right next to my hand. I found myself checking it every 10 minutes, just to make sure I hadn't missed a call or a text. "She's fine," Alex said gently, noticing my anxiety. "She's having the time of her life with her cousin. They're probably deep into their second movie by now, high on pizza and frosting." I knew he was right. I knew I was probably being ridiculous. This was the paranoia of a first-time sleepover mum, amplified by my history with Brenda. I was projecting my own issues onto a perfectly normal situation. Millions of kids had sleepovers every weekend. It was fine. Everything was fine. "I'm being paranoid," I said out loud, trying to convince myself. "I know, it's Brenda." "I know," he said, his voice full of understanding. He didn't try to tell me I was wrong. He just refilled my wine glass and put his arm around me. We finished the movie, but I couldn't have told you what it was about. My entire nervous system felt like it was on high alert, waiting for a signal. The rational part of my brain was telling me to relax, but the older, more primal part, the part that had been trained for years to anticipate Brenda's next act of chaotic selfishness, was screaming that something was wrong. It was a familiar feeling, a low-grade hum of dread that had been the background music to so much of my life. I had just gotten so good at ignoring it. We went to bed around 11. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my ears straining for the sound of my phone. Alex, ever practical, had plugged it into the charger on my nightstand so it wouldn't die. Every creak of the house, every distant siren, made me jump. I must have drifted off at some point, falling into a light, restless sleep filled with anxious dreams. In one, I was back in my childhood home, trying to clean up a huge, sprawling mess of broken glass while Brenda laughed at me. The sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand was what finally jolted me awake. It wasn't a dream, it was real. The red light of the alarm clock read 2:13 a.m. My heart seized in my chest. No good news ever arrives at 2:13 a.m. Alex was already sitting up, his senses on high alert just like mine. I fumbled for the phone, my hand shaking as I swiped to answer. "Lily, sweetie, are you okay?" The sound of her crying, that raw, hiccuping sound of genuine distress, cut through me like a knife. It wasn't the whine of a kid who just wanted her own bed. It was the sound of fear. "Mommy, I want to come home," she sobbed. My mind raced through the possibilities. A nightmare, a stomachache from too much junk food, a fight with Chloe. I tried to keep my voice steady, to be the calm center in her storm. "Of course, honey. We can come get you right now. Did you have a bad dream? What happened?" There was a sniffle on the other end, a shaky breath, and then the sentence that stopped my world from turning, the sentence that contextualized every bad feeling, every red flag, every warning from my gut. "Aunt Brenda said you told her it was okay." The line went quiet for a second, and I could hear faint music in the background. Not kids' movie music. Something with a heavy bass line. "Okay for what, Lily?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "Okay for what?" "To go to the party," she whispered. "We went to a party. At Mr. Henderson's house." The name hit me first. Mr. Henderson. I knew that name. He was a friend of Rick's, a single guy in his 40s known for throwing loud, booze-soaked parties in the neighborhood. The idea of my 7-year-old daughter being in that man's house at this hour of the night was so monstrous, so far beyond the realm of anything I could have imagined, that for a moment, my brain refused to process it. It was like trying to solve an equation where none of the numbers made sense. "A party?" I repeated, my voice hollow. Alex was out of bed now, pulling on a pair of jeans, his face a grim mask. He could hear the terror in my voice. "Lily, honey, where are you right now? Are you back at Aunt Brenda's house?" "Yes," she whispered. "We just got back." Chloe fell asleep in the car. "But I didn't like it, Mommy. It was loud and there were lots of grown-ups yelling and they smelled funny." Smelled funny. My mind immediately translated that to beer and cigarettes. The image of my little girl, in her unicorn pajamas, surrounded by a crowd of drunk adults, sent a wave of pure, white-hot rage through me. This wasn't just irresponsibility. This wasn't just Brenda being Brenda. This was endangerment. This was a violation of the most sacred trust a person can be given. Why did she say I knew about it? I asked, my voice shaking with a fury I had never felt before. She said, "You and Daddy wanted a night off too, so it was a special treat for all of us." Lily explained, her voice trembling. "She said you knew Mr. Henderson and that he was really nice." The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty. She had used me, my name, my authority, to legitimize her own selfish, reckless behavior and to rope my daughter into it. She had lied to her face, making me a co-conspirator in my own child's neglect. It was the ultimate gaslighting, aimed not at me this time, but at a vulnerable 7-year-old. I was done. The part of me that had always made excuses, that had always tried to keep the peace, died in that instant. It was replaced by something cold, hard, and utterly unforgiving. "Okay, sweetie," I said, my voice now devoid of any emotion but ice. "Listen to me very carefully. Daddy and I are getting in the car right now. We are coming to get you. Don't go to sleep. Just wait for us. We'll be there in 10 minutes. I hung up the phone and looked at Alex. He didn't need an explanation. The look on my face told him everything. "She took them to a party," I said, my voice flat. "Rick's friend Henderson's house." Alex's jaw tightened, and a muscle jumped in his cheek. He was a calm man by nature, slow to anger, but in that moment I saw a fury in his eyes that mirrored my own. He was already grabbing our car keys from the hook by the door. "Let's go," was all he said. The questions I had for Lily could wait. My only priority was getting her out of that house. I threw on the first clothes I could find, a sweatshirt and a pair of leggings, and followed him out the door, not even bothering to turn off the lights. The 10-minute drive to Brenda's house felt like an eternity. The streets were deserted, bathed in the eerie orange glow of the streetlights. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing to say. We were united in a singular, silent purpose. My mind was a maelstrom. I replayed years of slights, of betrayals, of casual cruelties. The broken bike, the stolen car money, the vacation paid for with our savings. They were all pieces of a larger mosaic of selfishness, and this latest act was the final, ugliest piece that completed the picture. For years I had allowed her to treat me like an object, a convenience. But Lily was not an object. She was my child. And Brenda had put her at risk for the most pathetic of reasons, so she and her deadbeat husband could go get drunk at a party. She hadn't wanted to pay for a babysitter. Or, more likely, she hadn't wanted to admit to her friends that she was stuck at home with the kids. So she had just packed them up and taken them along, like they were accessories, little props in the movie of her life. And the lie she'd told Lily, that was the part that felt like a physical wound. Mommy said it was okay. She had poisoned my daughter's trust in me to serve her own needs. That was unforgivable. That was a line from which there was no coming back. As we sped through the silent suburban streets, a chilling clarity settled over me. The fog of obligation and guilt that had clouded my judgment for my entire life was burning away, replaced by the stark, cold light of reality. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was a pattern. This was who my sister was, and who she would always be. A user, a manipulator. A person so mired in her own selfish needs that she was incapable of considering the well-being of anyone else, even an innocent child. The frog was finally jumping out of the boiling water. I felt all the years of suppressed anger, of swallowed insults and bitten-back retorts, coalescing into a single, hard diamond of resolve in my chest. I wasn't sad, I wasn't hurt. I was done. I was going to walk into that house, take my daughter, and sever the connection to these people for good. There would be no screaming match, no dramatic breakdown. I was beyond that. My anger was too cold, too pure for that. It was the anger of a mother whose child has been threatened. There is nothing more final or absolute in the world. As we pulled up to her house, I could see a light on in the living room. Everything looked normal from the outside, deceptively peaceful. But I knew what had happened inside those walls. A profound trust had been shattered. Alex put the car in park and turned to me, his hand on my arm. "Let me do the talking if it gets heated," he said, his voice low and firm. "No," I said, meeting his gaze. My own voice surprised me with its strength. It didn't waver. "No, this one's mine. I need to do this." He saw the look in my eyes and simply nodded. He understood. This was more than just getting Lily. This was an exorcism, and I had to be the one to perform it. We got out of the car, and the sound of our doors slamming shut echoed in the pre-dawn stillness like a declaration of war. I didn't knock. I hammered on the front door with the side of my fist, a loud, insistent banging that I hoped would convey the full force of my rage. After a few seconds, the door creaked open. Brenda stood there, silhouetted by the light from the living room. She was still in her party clothes, her makeup slightly smeared. She blinked at me, a look of groggy annoyance on her face. "Marta? What on earth? It's the middle of the night. You'll wake the girls," she hissed, her voice a loud whisper. The hypocrisy was so astounding it almost made me laugh. "The girls are already awake, Brenda," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Or at least mine is. I'm here to pick her up." I pushed past her into the house without waiting for an invitation. Alex followed, a silent, imposing figure behind me. Lily was huddled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale and tear-streaked. She looked so small and lost. The moment she saw me, she ran into my arms, burying her face in my sweatshirt and sobbing. I held her tight, stroking her hair, my entire being focused on her. "It's okay, sweetie," I whispered. "Mommy's here. We're going home." Brenda closed the door, her annoyance shifting into a defensive posture. "Okay, I don't know what she told you, but you are seriously overreacting," she said, crossing her arms. "We were just at a neighbor's. We had the baby monitor. They were perfectly safe." Rick stumbled out from the hallway, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah, Marta, chill out. It was no big deal. The kids had fun." The gaslighting had begun. It was so predictable, so rote. I could have recited the lines myself. They weren't sorry. They were just annoyed that they'd been caught. I looked up from Lily, my eyes locking with Brenda's. "A neighbor's?" I asked, my voice dripping with ice. "That's funny. Lily said you were at Mr. Henderson's house. Isn't that 3 blocks away? And I'm pretty sure a baby monitor doesn't have that kind of range." The mention of Henderson's name wiped the smirk off Rick's face and made Brenda's eyes widen in panic. She had been caught in a direct lie, and she knew it. "Well, okay, it was Henderson's," she stammered, backpedaling furiously. "But it wasn't a big deal. It was just a few people. We could see the house from his porch. You're making this into some huge drama, like you always do. Like I always do." The classic blame shift. The problem wasn't her reckless endangerment of our children. The problem was my reaction to it. Alex took a step forward, his presence alone a threat. "You took my 7-year-old daughter to a drunk party at 2 in the morning and you're telling her mother she's being dramatic?" he asked, his voice a low growl. Rick puffed out his chest. "Hey, watch your tone, man. They're fine. Nothing happened." "Nothing happened?" I shot back, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. "You lied to my daughter's face. You used my name to manipulate her into a situation where she was scared and uncomfortable. You broke her trust. You broke my trust. That's not nothing, you selfish, irresponsible people." Brenda's face crumpled, but not with remorse. It was the frustration of a child who had been denied her toy. "I can't believe you're doing this. After everything I did to make Chloe's birthday special, I just wanted to have a little bit of fun for once. You have no idea how stressful my life is." It was then that she did the one thing that sealed her fate forever. She picked up her phone. "I'm calling Mom and Dad," she said, her voice trembling with self-pity. "They'll make you see how crazy you're being." It was her ultimate weapon, the summoning of her enablers, the final play in her well-worn book of manipulation. "Go ahead," I said, my voice flat. "Put them on speaker. I wanted them to hear it. I wanted them to be a part of the end." Brenda fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking, and a moment later my mother's sleepy, concerned voice filled the room via speakerphone. "Brenda? Honey? What's wrong? Is Chloe okay?" "Mom, it's Marta," Brenda sobbed into the phone. "She's here and she's screaming at me. She's trying to take Lily and ruin Chloe's birthday." It was a masterful performance of victimhood. Before I could even speak, my mother's tone shifted. "Marta, what on earth are you doing at your sister's house at this hour? You need to calm down and stop making a scene." My father's voice chimed in from the background. "Listen to your mother, Marta. Whatever it is, it can be sorted out in the morning. Family doesn't do this to each other." Family, that word. They had been using it as a bludgeon my entire life, a tool to demand my compliance and forgiveness. That was the final straw. All the years of resentment, every swallowed injustice, every moment I had been forced to be the bigger person, came pouring out of me in a cold, controlled torrent. "No," I said, my voice ringing with a clarity that silenced the room. "We're not sorting this out. I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one. I am done cleaning up her messes. I am done being the family bank, and the family therapist, and the family doormat." I looked directly at Brenda, who was staring at the phone in horror. "You want to talk about family? Family doesn't take a 7-year-old to a drunk party. Family doesn't lie to a child's face to manipulate them. Family doesn't endanger someone else's daughter so they can have a little fun." I turned my attention back to the phone. "And you," I said to my parents, "you are the ones who created this. You built her throne, and you taught me my only job was to bow down to it. You enabled her, you excused her, and you sacrificed my well-being for her comfort every single time. The broken bike, the money she stole from me for that concert, the $2,000 for the rent that she spent on God knows what while you took her to Hawaii. It all leads here, to this moment. To her believing that she has the right to do whatever she wants, without consequences, because Mommy and Daddy will always be there to tell everyone else they're overreacting." A stunned silence filled the room. For the first time in my life, I had said it all. I had spoken the forbidden truth. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't care what their excuses would be, what new manipulations they would attempt. I reached over and ended the call on Brenda's phone myself. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Brenda looked at me, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief, as if I had just spoken in a foreign language she couldn't comprehend. Rick just stood there, his mouth slightly agape. They had no script for this. They had never encountered a version of me that wouldn't back down. I turned to Alex. "Get her bag," I said. He nodded and disappeared into the living room to grab Lily's things. I scooped my daughter, who was still clinging to me, up into my arms. She was surprisingly heavy, but I didn't care. I would have carried her through fire. I walked toward the door, my steps firm and purposeful. Brenda finally found her voice. "Marta, wait," she pleaded, a desperate edge to her tone. "You can't just leave. We're sisters, we're family." I stopped at the doorway and looked back at her tear-streaked, panicked face. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, no sadness. Just a vast, empty space where my love for her used to be. "No, we're not," I said, my voice as cold and final as a tombstone. "Not anymore. You are not family to me. And you will never, ever be alone with my daughter again." Alex reappeared with Lily's sleeping bag and backpack, and we walked out, leaving Brenda standing in the doorway of her messy, chaotic life. We didn't look back. The drive home was as silent as the drive there, but the quality of the silence was different. It wasn't tense anymore. It was peaceful. Lily, exhausted from the tears and the fear, fell asleep in the back seat, her breathing soft and even. She was safe. That was all that mattered. When we got home, Alex carried her upstairs and tucked her into her own bed. He came back down and found me in the kitchen, staring out the window at the first hints of dawn. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I leaned back against him and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 35 years. "I think," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face, "I'm better than I've ever been." It was a terrifying feeling, this new freedom, but it was also glorious. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was exactly what you'd expect. My phone was bombarded with calls and texts from my parents and Brenda, alternating between furious accusations and syrupy, guilt-laden pleas for reconciliation. I blocked their numbers. Then came the flying monkey saunts, uncles, cousins messaging me on social media, telling me I was tearing the family apart, that I needed to be the bigger person and forgive. Forgive what? I wanted to ask. Forgive the endangerment or the decades of abuse that led to it. I blocked them too. I created a fortress of silence around myself, Alex and Lily, and inside it, for the first time in my life, there was peace. The constant, low-grade anxiety that had been my lifelong companion simply vanished. My shoulders unclenched. I slept through the night. I found myself laughing more, enjoying the small moments with my daughter and my husband without a cloud of familial obligation hanging over me. Life became simple, and it was beautiful. About 6 months later, I heard through the grapevine a cousin who had wisely stayed neutral that Brenda and Rick had been evicted from their house. Apparently, Rick had lost his job, and they had, once again, blown through their savings. My parents, finally reaching the bottom of their own financial well after years of bailing them out, were unable to rescue them this time. A part of me, the old Marta, might have felt a pang of guilt. But the new Marta felt nothing but a quiet, calm sense of vindication. The consequences had finally arrived. The cycle was broken, at least for me. I look at Lily now, a happy, thriving 8-year-old, and I know I did the right thing. I protected her not just from one dangerous night, but from a lifetime of toxicity. I showed her what it means to have boundaries, and that no one, not even family, has the right to hurt you. So I'll ask you, because I still wonder sometimes in the dead of night, did I go too far, or did I finally do what I should have done 20 years ago? Let me know what you think.